Hello, my friend. I'm Charlie Simons, your host on Do Not Talk, talking about two things you're never supposed to talk about: religion and politics at rumble.com/do not talk. Rumble.com/do not talk. What you're hearing in the background, some voices in the background, that is an actual conference call that's going on right now that I've decided I'm going to bring to you live. I'm just going to turn it over, watch the whole thing if you can. If not, there's a whole series of great guest speakers about integrity. As I've been saying all along, nothing's gonna change with this upcoming election unless something is done to curb or stop the rampant cheating that has been going on, is continuing. So that's what this is all about. Steve Stern, Stern American on Rumble is just a great patriot and a great podcaster, and I really appreciate him, and he's been putting together this consortium of different guest speakers to explain how we get involved, how we help, and where, and what we need to look for, what we need to do. So I'm going to turn it over because it's already in progress. It has already begun. Steve Stern with this conference call here, uh, all associated with Steve Bannon, who is currently in prison right now from the War Room. So let's go there now.
actually have a court that will adjudicate issues like this anywhere in the land. So far, we haven't been as successful as we would like to be. And to Greg's point, this takes far too long. We have an election in a couple of weeks here, frankly, when it all boils down to it. So again, sitting trying to demand grand jury investigations should be something that is simple to do, but apparently not so simple. So let's talk about the supervisor of election candidates and what we witnessed on August 20th. Like 101.572 of ballots, where this SOE has to actually candidates whose names appear on these ballots obviously didn't go as well as planned. Tried to make it very difficult. Nothing happened. They didn't. They had signed affidavits attesting to the fact that they decided to open all mail-in ballots without notice of each day that they had any day, and is well above the tabulated total. So basically, video was captured of them completely disregarding that particular statute. We have seen this before. This playbook isn't even being reinvented. They're just doing it here in Florida. Maintenance orders of polls is also being ignored in these instances. I want to move down to another candidate right here in, where am I? Hang on one second. Chris Canales. Oh yeah. Request for vote by mail ballots. This is shocking. It's statute 10162. So the supervisor shall accept a request for a vote ballot elector in person writing. One request shall be deemed to receive a vote by mail ballot for all elections through the second ensuing regularly scheduled general election unless the elector or elector's designee indicates at the time the request is made the elections for which the elector desires to receive a vote by mail ballot. This is what he found. Chris Gleason found through his own investigation that 219,000 approximately voters in Pinellas County requested vote by mail ballots out of about 250,000 on the exact same days of 6/23/24. Happened to be my birthday, by the way. He found it unbelievable. He filed a public records request asking to see a copy, and the supervisor of election responded that Chris was incorrect, but that they said that he requested it 19th of 23 using his driver's license number. So he has a printout showing that 100% he's on record requesting a vote by mail ballot on June 23rd. Not only does this verify, Chris contends that no way this number of people, remember I said 219,000 or 50,000, all requested a vote by mail ballot on the exact same day. So again, this is just glaring example after glaring example after glaring example. So when I look at what we just heard Greg talk about, when I look at the fact that we haven't been successful in getting any sort of adjudication, follow through in the courts that is, rendering us in a place where we feel safe, we should be doing same day voting, paper ballots, smaller precincts, more of them, hand counting. When we haven't been able to, very few counties around the country have actually passed ordinances that we're done with the machines, we're going to do paper ballots. So few. Not enough to make a difference at this point. With the assessment, we're looking at another stolen election, burning edge, and all the illegals coming across the border, all the illegals voting, all the Social Security numbers that are being expedited for the illegals, all the I-10 numbers, the tagged out to these illegals with their knowledge. It makes you wonder.
Yes, 2 minutes.
2 minutes. It makes you wonder, how much more complicit is the government from the federal, state, and local level going to be so in your face and so before finally just grind and throw dirt in the gears of government and just, we have to get this to shut down. We have to peacefully non-comply with intent, one of the most egregious, if not the most, government can do when they absolutely silence your vote and steal it right in front of you and then don't give you anywhere for remedy. So again, the only place I actually see remedy coming, and that the evidence that has been garnered by all thousands of people around the country that have done finding all the evidence, will be in the Supreme Court of rights. And then when we start to look at how they can prove your civil right violated by voter disenfranchisement, we can flood the zone with all the evidence. And if folks, that doesn't work, we have some big make as Americans. Steve, and
thank you, Ann. We'll be on again, and I'm getting all kind of texts. They'd like to see you on again. So we have a special guest, Bill McKinley, former White House cabinet under President Trump. Bill is the Trump campaign and everything else. He's a wonderful guy. He works. He gave up time. He's always on the phone, always on meetings, and we appreciate him coming on to let what's going on.
Steve, and it's a real honor to be on with everybody today. And first thing I want to do is commend you and thank you for your interest and passion about the need for election integrity and everything to help President Trump prevail and be victorious on November 5th. I think nobody on this call is going to be surprised that it's been quite a 6-week period that we've all had to go through, especially the president with the assassination attempt, the convention, the Kamala Harris switching in for Joe Biden and everything else. I can tell you that the campaign, I think the sugar high for Kamala Harris down. It's becoming it's hopefully going to become a sugar high hangover soon. She continues to make missteps. The press is never going to call her on it, but I think people are beginning to wake up and begin to see what we're actually up against. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things today. I don't have a lot of time, but I did want to make sure that I was on this call. And as Steve said, he and I have been talking along with others who are on this call, because this really is an all-hand election. This is something where we all need to pull together. We all need to put the sweat equity in, the volunteer time, whether it's get out the vote, committing to make sure that you get 10 of your neighbors, friends, family, not only to register to vote if they haven't already, but to turn out to the polls to make sure that we can get the ballots in there. As somebody who's done a lot of recounts and contests, I can tell you there's nothing for us to fight over if people don't vote. And what's critically important for this election, Davis and others, who's a dear friend, will always say, make sure that you vote early, because who knows what's going to election day. Out the best way for them to vote. SwampTheVoteUSA.com. SwampTheVoteUSA.com is a website that the campaign and the RNC has put up. That's going to have the most convenient way for you to vote that you're most comfortable with. Share that website with others. Once again, it's SwampTheVoteUSA.com. Please make sure you figure out the best way for you to vote, and to get those other 10, 15, 20 people who friends, family, and neighbors who believe like us that America is worth saving, and get them to the polls. What are we up against? I don't think anybody on this call has any sort of misunderstanding about the machine that we're up against for 2024. I've talked about this on War Room. The Democrats designed a presidential campaign that really was a turnkey operation, I think, to be able to switch in whatever candidate they want. If you look in terms of the apparatus, the campaign itself is the smallest entity, least staffed on the Democratic side. And as we talk about, it's not just the Harris and DNC combo that we're up against, but it's going to be about $2 billion in dark money that we think is going to flood over the battleground states and others. Of course, the RNC and others have filed lawsuits about the Biden EO that tries to weaponize voter registrations, your taxers, and we are fighting that tooth and nail. That nobody thinks that is proper. But what we have is you. I mean, what we have is motivated volunteer army, men and women who care about this country, who can actually make a difference. And it's something that is incremental. It is something that is going to be small steps at a time. I have a lot of speakers on today that talk about a lot of broad, big concepts. But at the end of the day, what I'm asking you to do is to basically take control of the part of your life or the part of your neighborhood, the part of your city, the part of your county that you are actually involved in, that you are active in, and to make sure that people of goodwill, people who want to save this country, are going to go out, turn out the vote, everybody else to vote, be a force multiplier on that side. So what is some of the dark money stuff that we saw from 2020 that really will kind of be a preamble to what we'll probably see in 2024? There were a lot of reports early on this year, and I track a lot of the dark money stuff. And unfortunately, because of the IRS reporting system, it's not real time like the FEC with independent expenditures. But when you look in terms of what the dark money groups have done, looking back at 2020, the last major presidential election, obviously, $4 million went into Georgia alone. $64 million. That would swamp any presidential campaign. Arizona, $23 million. Pennsylvania, $47 million. Michigan, $52 million. Wisconsin, $20 million. North Carolina, $22 million. So those sound like daunting numbers. And remember, there was one group, the New Venture Fund, that in 2020 reported receiving and spending almost $1 billion alone. And a lot of the transfers were going out to organizations, 501c3s, 501c4s, and others that are controlled by Democratic operatives and managed and used. Don't be intimidated by those numbers. Those are pay people to try and feign authenticity that they care Democratic candidates. There is nothing more powerful in politics, equalizer. And I appreciate everything that she's. The election is here. It is now. And some of this, in September, we're going to have a number of states are going to begin their early voting programs. This is no longer something that is coming over the horizon. We are here. And so the time for action is now. As my friend Steve Bannon would always say, action, action in your community and motivate others to vote. And by the way, don't limit it to your community. You have friends and family across the country, especially in the battleground states that could determine the president, whether it's Arizona, Pennsylvania, it's Georgia. I would include Virginia in that, and also Minnesota and others. But we also need to have control of representatives. We need to have control of the United States Senate. So I would put Montana and Ohio in there for the United States Senate, New York and California for the United States representatives as well. This is all hands on deck. We're able to combat everything that's coming at us. You live in a battleground state, Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, New York, or California for the House of Representatives. Please go to protectthevote.com, protect the poll watcher. We need others in the counting centers. We need them for early voting. We need it for canvas afterwards. The one thing I want to leave you guys with, this is, as you guys know, we no longer do we have election day, we have election month. And sometimes we have election months, plural. And not only does that need to be, do we need to have eyes and ears, men and women who are intelligent, can exercise good judgment, who know that the lawyers can do what they got to do. We also need it after election day during the canvass. When they go back retabulate, and try to serve the election. We need to have eyes and ears from early voting, election day, to the canvas. And so we need people to sign up. Whatever time you can start, we will be grateful. So please go to protectthevote.com. Go to Trump Force 47 is another website if you want to be a precinct captain and help with the get out the vote. You can also watch your box on Trump Force 47 if you're in a non-battleground state, and we've got a meeting to basically reach out to you to try and see how best you can utilize your time and what we do to help make you successful in doing that. I know that there have been some hiccups in the past. We have a new team that has taken over the operational side, the poll watching program in terms of the volunteers. And they are, that I'm hearing so far is that the people are being contacted on some media, people who are signing up on the site, and they've gotten a couple of calls and emails already. We need you to get through the training. Remember, only the political parties and the candidates have the authority under state law to credential folks to be in as poll watchers in polling places, to be able to observe the vote. So the party is something that is critically important. So please go through the training and get credentialed so that you can handle some shifts, critically important function that state law has provided for decades. This is a process that both Democrats and Republicans do in their messaging, trying to intimidate people. This is something transparency to the process, and transparency is righteous in elections. It's how people are going to have faith in the process and confidence in the results. But critically, we say there are two sides of the same coin. Election integrity and get out the vote are two sides of the very. Don't ever forget that. You have to turn votes. The ballots have to be cast to ensure that those lawful ballots are counted for President Trump and that he can prevail November 5. Steve, why don't I stop there? And
Okay, thank you very much. We'll have you on again. Hopefully you'll come on in a couple of weeks and bring us up to date what's going on with the Trump campaign. We're going to get Tom Renz on. He's next. Luckily, I can finally see him because we try to get him all the time. He's one of the great patriots here because he exposes all the yo-yos and all the political hacks that we have. Tom, go to it.
Honor, Stephen, thank you for having me, and thank you for what you're trying to be quick and consistent thing I can say about it. If you want to challenge election fraud, you need to be having your cases under development now. Do not wait till election day and say, hey, I need to file something tomorrow. It will not work. Your lawyer will be sanctioned. You'll probably be disbarred. It will not work at all. The biggest problem that we had in 2020 in hindsight is that we filed a whole slew of cases without taking the time to get them right because everybody was panicked because of the massive election fraud. I would go so far as to say we didn't lose 2020 in November. We lost it in June or July. Everybody knew that the Democrats were ramping up for massive voter fraud, but nobody prepped for it. Now, this year, we have the benefit of a lot of larger organizations prepping. There's a lot of money being spent getting good lawyers ready to go on this. I think there'll be successful litigation, or at least more successful litigation, but I will not go so far as to win this in the courts. Some of the states, Michigan, for example, passed absolutely absurd laws preventing any sort of real judicial review. Now, constitutional or not, I don't know. We'll look. I wouldn't count on. I will tell you is that there are some opportunities for litigation up front. I think one of the areas that, depending on the state you're in, that you can look at is solid proof of the voter rolls being inflated, things like that. There may be some early cases that can be filed with the Secretary of State, maybe, to try and get the Secretary of State moving. But I want to focus on Secretary of State moving because this is a critical thing. This is where as General Flynn likes to say, no, local action, translate, we have to have local action. We have to have Steve Stern. We have to have people like Steve all over the country. You've got to get active locally, because what we have to do is pressuring our local politicians to take every action that they can under the law, and also to pressure the state politicians to do the right thing. We have to be calling our state AGs. We need massive political pressure on these state AGs. In Ohio, there's a big fight right now. We've got all of these people on the voter rolls that shouldn't be there, and the Secretary of State's dragging his feet dealing with. He's done some good things, but not enough. This leads to one of the fundamental issues that I think everybody needs to be aware of. Having an R by your name does not mean you are a good guy. I know I'm going to get chastised for this. Everybody's going to give me hell, tell me I shouldn't. Listen, I believe in principle over party, and anybody that doesn't isn't the right man for the job. We have a lot of Republicans who have refused to recognize on here. They've refused to recognize that the votes are stolen. They've refused to recognize the election fraud that occurred. Zuckerberg just wrote a letter to the Judiciary Committee where he acknowledged that they censored the fraud discussion on Facebook. The GOP-led Judiciary Committee acknowledged his letter, but didn't recognize his admission that they felt pressured to censor related to voter fraud issues. This is a foundational issue. This is a foundational issue. You need to look at your GOP reps and recognize that if they're not pushing this issue, they're probably rhinos, and they may be never Trumpers. We've got a lot of them in the GOP. So we've got to take our red states and we've got to pressure the GOP in the red states. We have the most power to pressure the GOP in red states, right? If you could pressure Hochul all you want, it isn't going to do any good. She's a crooked sellout. But the Democrats are beyond redemption. We can fix the Republican Party, but we need to be willing to call out our own that don't have the courage to do the right thing. And I don't care how many people we make mad saying that. This is the reality. The GOP needs to be behind this 100%, not half-heartedly, not saving political face. There needs statements about what's going on in the elections, and they need to be taking steps to fix it. So we press. What is this? If you're Missouri and Ohio are likely to be targeted with some extra voter fraud here. I live in Ohio. And ask them what they're doing about their voter rolls. You need to pressure your local GOP. We have to start locally. You can go to a local and what they're doing to pressure the state GOP and the state elected officials on voter. We've got to push cleaning up the voter rolls. It's a crucial part of the strategy. In 2020, the post-mortem, one of the things that we've seen a lot of is, there's a lot of evidence and a lot of questions of machines. But one thing that nobody's questioning, fraudulent ballots. It appears there were massive numbers of fraudulent ballots. They were printed post hoc. They found out how many they needed, and they backfilled the numbers because they let the election go on and on and on and on with recount after recount, with thing after thing. That's where a lot of the fraud was, and that's where some of the strongest evidence is. We have got to push the GOP to put their foot down on this. There is no reason elections aren't closed out in no more than a day or two after the election. Let me ask everybody this question, which should be very plain. If we have to have voting machines, why are they counted same day, right? These machines they count instantaneously. Why is it not done by the end of the day? If they're counting that same, they should be done. We don't need to have 2 weeks of elections. We need a month of elections. If that's the case, let's go back to ballots and hand counting. The excuses break down when you start looking at what's going on. And we need to start calling people these things, and we need to start demanding more of the GOP on this. We need to start demanding starting locally, and we've got to get the GOP to stand behind Donald Trump and MAGA in this election. properly. If you're, if you're a never Trumper, you need to be out of the GOP or at least of any position of power in the GOP immediately. That starts with local action. That's where I think people need to focus. I think we can get the most bang for our buck there. And by the way, please help Turning Point, help all these different organizations that are pushing to get out the vote, because we do have to, while we're fighting corruption, I agree with the previous speaker, two sides of the same coin. We can get out the vote, we got to fight the corruption. If we don't do both, we're lost. Steve, I'm trying to get you back on schedule and set up right now. Thank you, sir.
Thanks very much. So we have a great guy on today. He's not going to speak, but Ohio has this live on Bright on TV. Much appreciated. Friday for dinner. Okay, I don't know if Greg is still on. I think he got off. So let's go to. Do you see Greg on or no? Or he's got off.
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Is it Greg? Okay. Joe will come back to you in just a moment. Stand by, Joe. Going to Greg. And Greg, you are up.
Thank you. I see Joe Hoffman, my friend. Tom Rentz, we've talked in the past, many times. So
Yes,
it's good to see the gangs all here. I particularly enjoyed Ann's presentation, and I listened closely to Bill McGinley. So sticking to the fact that actions are better than words, as I mentioned earlier, we have filed actually at this point over 70 the lower courts of Pennsylvania in multiple counties over the past 4 years, including 2020. And what we were doing there is stakes into the ground. So that as Tom, we're not waiting until after this upcoming. We've already developed, actually, it can be used throughout the country, that massive election fraud not only did occur, but is occurring right now and will occur before. And we have to tell people, the people here in this group, I see John, hey John Childs there, so I waved, so we were together last night. We have to be prepared in advance. We have to mentally prepare the people that are, they're listening to us as a group. We have to mentally prepare them that they're going to steal the election, and then mentally prepare them for what's to be done before and afterwards. We're preparing Delaware County and working with other counties, and we're going to continue to work with them. We are prepared to fight for ballots applied who either don't live in our county or are not qualified electors. There's a process to that like John Childs on here, and he's been working with a group of people within our group who are preparing the procedures of how to do that. Procedures by next week, specific to challenging mail-in ballot applications by unqualified electors. That has to be done before the election. And it's a little different from cleaning the voter rolls. The efforts of Kathy Engelbert and others here to clean, the valiant efforts to clean voter rolls have been heavily opposed and thwarted. And that was one part of the battle. But now that we have the voter rolls where they are, we can continue to clean them, as other people before me have said. But what we have to do now is we have to focus on the people that are on the voter rolls unlawfully that are now applying for mail-in ballots. That's where we draw the line today and tomorrow and going up to the election. We must we must make sure that only qualified electors are allowed to vote. Now we have, at this point, I think we have 7 different specific tasks that can be done that have been developed by different people. I'm not gonna, I said intellectual property anymore. We're too close to the wire here to worry about who gets credit for what. There are some people that are, there's a group there's a group here within our with our county. I know Heather Honey, our to people who have moved and said, would you please form saying you wish to, a huge response because the counties weren't doing that. And that does not require any litigation to make the letter. They sent back a note card to the people who were doing this. God love them. And now we know that there's hundreds and hundreds of people that should be from the voter roll. Location challenges. We're not thwarting vote. We want people to vote, even if it is by mail. We want people to vote. We just don't qualify electors to vote. So I'm going to mention a couple of things again. We've developed MIBD, specifically for Pennsylvania. We're getting data from other states now, but mail-in ballot database, MIBDB.org. You can log in, and people who live specifically in Delaware County, you can see all of their mail-out envelopes going back to 2020 that were submitted in their name. We've already had people come in and say, these aren't ours. I didn't do this as my signature. Or I submitted a mail-in and it's not here. Where is it? So one of the things that's happened since the last time I spoke, and I've been on a few of these, but for 4 years, we were asking Delaware County for mail-in ballot envelope. We want to see the mail-in ballot envelopes from 2020. You said you counted 130,000. You mailed out 156,000 is what you said now. Before the election, they said they mailed out 104,000. Then when they counted 130,000, then they said, oh, we sent out 156,000. You sent out 50,000 mail-in ballots 4 days before the election? Really? Okay, let's go with that. But they were supposed to be able to print 30,000 mail-in ballots. 4 years later, we finally got images, and they can only produce 97,500. I said, well, you're still 32,500 short. Where are they? And we just got blank looks. We went to county council meetings. It was people here in this call. We don't just call the county commissioner meetings. There's time to speak publicly and air this request. In the last Board of Elections meeting, we asked, why aren't the cameras turned on? We're in election season again, right? Where are the cameras? Why aren't cameras turned on? Why do we only have 97,000 envelopes when you said there were 130,000? They're used to just being able to crap on and, not even responding to harsh letters to the county, to your representatives, with people here who aren't going to, not only are not vote for you, but we're going to work really hard to unseat you. That will get their attention. So of the 97,500 envelopes that I just mentioned that they provided us from 2020, they always leave something out. They always screw something up every time. They made hundreds and hundreds of different errors. So one of the questions we asked, and I'm going to ask here is, we noticed we've got images of all the other mail-in ballots, and they were all obviously open. They were either open with an envelope slicer, opened by the county, county officials, sliced open by one of the machines, and you can see that in all the images. What we've got here is of the 97,000 images you gave us, over 70,000 of them aren't open. I'm going to repeat that. Of the 97,500 envelopes they provided, of the 130,000 they were supposed to have, 70,000 of them aren't open.
2 minutes.
So it's this kind of evidence, and this is the evidence that we're going to be bringing in the coming weeks. The U.S. Supreme Court, as Ann stated, for these cases, and they have to have multiple already tried going to the U.S. Supreme Court with constitutional issues. It's not fair. Someone said this, they shouldn't have said that. The U.S. Supreme Court has historically and has demonstrated in the last 4 years they are not going to get involved in the way the state's elections. It's not a Supreme Court case.
You froze up. You want to get Joe on?
Stand by. Joe,
They
you're up.
will
Oh,
get-
hang on.
Say again?
Greg, your connection's breaking up. Can you wrap up in 15 seconds? Bring Joe Hoff on.
Sure. Good to have you here, Joe. What www easier to get in. www there. Providing these you can act on. You'll be able to pick one of 5 or 6 on Steve, Raj. Guys, it gets better every time. Thank you so much. Nice to see you, Joe.
Thanks, Greg. Joe, you're up.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Steve, Raj, everybody. It's great to be here. It's just some great Patriots, Americans that I really admire
A
and
little bit
love
louder,
now.
Joe. Put your volume up.
All right, have met a number of people. Maybe, anyways, is this better? How about I speak into it this
Yeah,
way? Is that better, Steve?
That's good.
Okay. So, anyways, yeah, great to be here with you guys, and thanks for everything. Thanks for setting this up, Steve. Doing a great job, and all the Patriots that are here. There's even I just noticed now, True the Vote teams up with the sheriff's offices country to provide live streamed, I guess, viewing of these. So good things are happening. We've got to continue to fighting and moving forward. My background, as many of you know, I have the Joe Hoff Show on Lindell today, weekdays. I'm also an author. I've written a number of books. It's 3 on this. And I'm interested in them if you'd like. I've spoken a lot and written a lot about this 2020 election, and what I was able to do is utilize my past experience in doing that. In the past, I was a corporate auditor and finance guy. I oversaw a $1 billion business at one time. The financial reporting on that was all around the world. This block of business was very complex, just like our election system. And at the same time, I did in my career was overseeing audits. So the board would send me out to various locations around the world, and I was able to perform audits and bet on a firm that everything was being validated and everything was proper. Did about 300-400 audits around the world. One thing I realized recently in a piece, in a presentation we gave Wisconsin, was that I've done audits in communist China, and when I went there, I asked for certain items, and they gave them to me. So the transparency there, and they wanted a clean bill of health. But in our election systems, they are broken, and we've done a lot of work. I've been involved with a group of professionals. We started a group called Fate 2024. There's a website, fate24.org, that you can go to. We've written some articles there, but what we started off doing was utilizing basically my auditing expertise, and we put together an inventory of all the processes and control that we believe are involved in the election process. And we came up with like 13 key processes, 100 sub processes, and over 500 controls that need to be in place to be fair, transparent, and accurate, and to prevent any fraud in our elections. Controls will do that. Controls or activities. This is what corporations do today. It's called Sarbanes-Oxley. You have to update not just that your financials are accurate, not just provide transparency to everything, but you have to perform process throughout the year and sign those processes. Our election process is what we found was that only a third or so of all the processes, of all the controls in these processes, are even in place. So we're stepping into this election, and it's broke. The system is broke. So the next step is, how are we going to attack this? One piece, maybe Raj, you can show this on the website at Fate 2024. There's an article up at the website. We found this document that the left is breaking about one of their nonprofits. It shows all the top right there, this diagram there, site, and look at it. That diagram shows all these various entities that are tied to the election process that the left uses to manage our elections. They've got Facebook on there, they've got corporations, they've got nonprofits, they've got government entities. All these things work in unison to drive our election process. It's a very complex system that they have put together. It's amazing, and they brag about this stuff, but they don't tell us some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. We all know maybe isn't so up and up. Anyways, this is what we're up against. We've got processes that don't work, and we've got this election. We call it the election industrial complex. Been on Bannon on the War Room to talk this, that we're up against. So what are we going to do? What we decided a year ago was that, well, we're not going to get rid of the machines, and that's probably been a good, I guess, guess of where we would be today. And we also decided that they're going to have mail-in ballots. We're probably going to have a lot of the same players. So what can we do to save this next election? And what we came up with after a lot of discussion, etc., was the one thing we can do, and I'll call this, is to protect the paper. So every single ballot comes into this election, we make sure that, and so what we've recommended, and we put together a couple articles, they're out there on 24.org, and it talks about ballots that are coming in that door and going out that door in the precincts. In other instances, so if you go down, Raj, just a little bit, you can see there the top articles there that show vote in them. One is we can reconcile the ballots in the precincts. The second activity that we need to do that a lot of people aren't talking about that is very significant is we need to reconcile all the ballots in these mail-in ballot facilities where there's so much, we believe there's massive fraud that's occurring. How can we protect ourselves, especially against the machines? Well, let's get our hands on the ballots. Let's protect that paper, and let's do all we can to stay up to date on what's coming in and out of those facilities throughout the election process. So mail in before the election and up to election day and after election day, and that includes drop boxes. That includes all these other activities. There's a chart there where we said, here's what we need to do for mail-in ballots. Here's what we need to do in the precincts. And these observers, like there's hundreds and thousands that want to help out. If we could give this information to you and you guys use these, we've got in some of these articles a text that you can use to reconcile information while you're there. Go there and just stand. We want you to go there and validate every single ballot coming out of the. Greg and Leah mentioned to me they had ballots already back room that they were replaced with ballots that came in when people cast their vote. So those are the kind of things we need to validate. We need to validate on day one that those facilities are free of any ballots sitting in back rooms. We need to look at the loading docks. We need to surround legally validate every single ballot coming into this election and going out. Even and there's an idea of the templates we put together. You can pick these up there. I've talked to the Republican Party, a member of the Republican Party yesterday about this. We want to push this out. I don't know, we need to vote. We need to do all the things everybody is saying. But if we're not for what we learned in 2020, if you're not in first place when the counting is done, good luck. Good luck. And the lawfare and the courts and the FBI and nobody was there for us. Even massive fraud that we know this system's broke. It shouldn't be in place. The people at United Sovereign Americans are doing a great job to contest this because these elections are broken. But if we're going to move forward with this, we've got to win. We can't make any changes if we lose. So we can, and we've got to be strong and stand together and validate every single piece of paper that comes into those elections, and don't allow them to bring garbage into our election system again. And that's what this effort is all about. That's it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Just want to give you one announcement. The Broward Republican Executive Committee is having a fundraiser at Gulf Racetrack on the 21st December. Anybody who wants to go, we're going to have Roger Stone there, Senator Scott, Dave Walsh, many speakers, many people. It's give me an email back if you'd like to come, or if you need any information. We also like other speakers. So if you want anybody to speak, 1054@gmail.com, go to the flagshirt.com, call me at 954-318-6902. Our next speaker, Stephen Tremillo, glad to have you. You're on.
We can't hear you just yet. Go
Can't
ahead
hear you,
and
Steve.
unmute. Hit unmute. Not yet. Hit unmute. I think you're disconnected from audio. Let me see here. Here twice. Let me see here. Here we go.
All right. Well, Steve and Raj, I appreciate you having me on today. I'm getting a little feedback. There we go. Okay. So Sheriff Mack is down in Orlando, Florida, with Bill Mitchell, our state director for the CSPO, Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. And I am media relations for Sheriff Mack's CSPOA. It's been a while since I've been on your podcast. I would like to state that we're having our Foundation for Freedom conference this coming Friday, September 6th, and Saturday the 7th at the Orlando Rosen Shingle Creek Convention Center. And Bill Mitchell asked me to mention that we have about 40 seats left. It's seating, but if anyone can make it down to Florida, or those of you that may be in the Florida area, I'd like to come to the Saturday conference. Go to foundationforfreedom.us. There is a coupon code COMP, C-E. If you use that coupon code, you can attend the conference for Saturday. So I just wanted to mention that. This conference is going to be about how to plan for the next several months. Depending on what happens with our elections, needs to be prepared for whatever the outcome may be. So it's going to be an important conference. Sheriff Mack will be speaking, Alex Newman, Pastor Caleb Cooper from New Mexico, Sheriff Glenn Hamilton, who was Pastor Caleb Cooper's county sheriff that stood up for the congregation of Pastor Cooper when their rights were being violated during COVID. General Flynn's sister, Marilyn, will be speaking as well. So a variety of speakers there, and we urge all of you to try to make it if you can. It will be recorded, streamed, but you'll be able to see the after the conference is over and the video is edited. As you know, down in Florida, there's 67 counties declared themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries. And it was telling me this morning that are considered constitutional counties, they've actually have ordinances that require compliance act that they put in. And we did that out here in Mojave County, Arizona, where I live. our Constitution. So I wanted to bring that up. Speaking of the election, Sheriff Mike and I were in Grand Junction, Colorado on August 6th for Tim Peters' blower trial. And I'm sure most of you are aware that she was deemed guilty on 7 out of the 10 counts. She is going to be appealing, so want to send our prayers to Tina, the preeminent whistleblower, as I call her. And the other thing that I kind of wanted to talk about today is when I'm out speaking and representing Sheriff Mike and the CSPOA. Most recently, I've had a lot of the hate me if the sheriffs could be a little bit more proactive, possibly have these or deputy posse members to be at the election to kind of monitor that if they see anything, or just to have a presence there, and of course that cannot be done. I wanted to mention that there would have to be some hard evidence for the election workers and we request that an investigation be made, but unless committed and no obvious corruption, we cannot presuppose that a crime has been committed. So I wanted to mention that. My business partner with our company, Patriot View, is on this call, and he's been putting some notes in the chat there. One of the things that he mentioned is the 10,000 Social Security numbers. In the 2000 Mules movie, it was revealed that the election crimes are being committed in over 104 different ways. And one of those ways is they're getting the illegal immigrants coming in and assigning one Social Security number to a block of 10,000. The money that is being paid that is being weaponized against us with this extremely high level of Sheriff POA, constitutional sheriff. He was investigating well before 2000 Mules came out, and the county attorney up there actually filed suit against him, I guess for a constitutional. And this is where most of our pushback is from. I have heard, and I think one of the earlier speakers alluded to this, not exactly as we have heard in Arizona, but the word was out that if any attorneys in Arizona tried to represent any election deniers, that they could possibly lose the bar license. So this has always been the roadblock to the sheriff, who is the chief law enforcement officer in the county.
2 minutes, Steve.
One of the other things I wanted to mention, Steve and Raj, is you're still using that 4-letter word we had years ago with Zoom. We had one of our calling all pastors and patriots and sheriffs calls sabotage. My understanding is Zoom is owned by Bill Gates, BlackRock, and the CCP. So we immediately switched over to the meeting, and we are a master impact partner with Meetin, that is a U.S. company out of Denver, Colorado. If any of you are interested in getting on a more secure video platform, go to our website, patriotview.us, patriotview.us. That was basically what I wanted to cover today. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much. Dan Schultz, you're up. Famous guy, precinct strategy. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here.
How much time do I have, Steve? How much time do I have?
Whatever you want.
Okay, thanks. Well, then I'll go a little bit slower because, I'm used to being on Bannon's War Room and, all of a sudden, boom, you're on. So but I will try to go fast. Tom Renz hit the nail on the, we have got to get involved locally. But what does that mean? In a political war is to get involved in a political party, and over Republican Party are still vacant. Why are they so important? Precinct committeemen elect everybody in the party at us, and precinct committeemen are in the best position to get out the vote. In 2020, I didn't do Trump victory stuff because they're the opposite of what TrumpForce47.com says it's doing now. I've signed up for TrumpForce47.com. I'm in Wisconsin now, but in 2020, I was in Arizona. And targeting the lower information, lower propensity voters with GOPdatacenter.com, myself and my fellow Republican precinct committeemen in my precinct, all 11 slots were filled. We got over 90% of Republicans to go vote. And that should be the Tyler Boyer on Twitter saying, we got to get 90% in every precinct. Yeah, we do. And if we do that, Trump will. But the average in Arizona was only 72% because Trump victory was sabotaging Trump. Believe me when I say this, there are people on the RNC who do not like Trump. Go look at today's headline on Drudge Report. There's a big article in Politico, and it's got Eric Erickson. They do it. If you're not in a battleground, sign up for talktrump.com. Sign up for protectthevote.com. I'm in a battleground state. I've already signed up here in Wisconsin for TrumpForce47.com. I've also signed up for protectthevote.com. We've all got to do something. It's too late now to fill up all the precinct committee slots, and we haven't done it. Now, let me give you some numbers. And I want to say this first. Why don't the Republicans in the trifecta states, I'll name 3 of them. What's a trifecta state? Republican governor, Republican Senate in the state. Why haven't they gotten rid of the machines? They have the power to do it. Texas, Florida, there's 19 others. And then in Arizona, Michigan, Arizona, and I am. Why haven't they, the state legislatures, per the Constitution, gotten rid of the machines for the federal elections? They have the power to do it from the Constitution. Why haven't they done it? It's because the so-called Republicans aren't really Republicans. Whose fault is that? They're a symptom of the underlying disease. The underlying disease is we're not organized and united politically where we live in the best way possible, doing it locally where we live. I put it years ago, how to get into the real ball game of politics. That's becoming a commitment. Where you live, tell Donald J. Trump, make America great again. He was doing this in 92. This is the precinct education program. You can go to the page and find it and download it if you want. This was put out by the RNC and the NRCC and the NRSC, and they were saying, we got to go back to precinct level, get out the vote with precinct committee. And then they got away from it again. We've got to do it ourselves. Nobody's coming to save us. We, the people, are the disease. We're not organized and united politically for real political action to take out the incumbent rhinos in the primary election. U.S. Senate, U.S. House, Republican primaries, 20%. It's a little more in presidential election years. Why aren't we taking out these incumbents? Because turnout is so low. Look at the recent across the country. How many rhinos have been retired? Hardly any. Why? Because the turnout wasn't boosted beyond 20 or 30%. I don't know of a primary where it was 40, 50. And whose fault is that? It's our fault collectively. We've got to, again, we got to get organized and united politically where we live for real political action in the best way possible in our local committees. I explain it all at precinctstrategy.com. The first 3 buttons on my site. First button is a communications and collaboration platform that Robert Beadle built for us. We got to get on it. We only have 16,590 people on it nationwide. I wanted to get 3,000 by the end of last year. And I wanted to get all the 200,000. Votify now. Get that app for your phone. Take photos, video of people stuffing ballot boxes with your phone. Votify now. Then also follow up and call the sheriff if you think what they're doing is illegal. Or if you have any problems with your ballot, report it on Votify now and then report it to the sheriff as well, like Jovan Pulitzer is talking about. Third button is all my educational podcasts. Now let me give you some numbers. Maricopa County, which I just moved out of. When I moved, my precinct had dropped down to 9 PC slots. It's based on a mathematical formula, based on the registrations, but all 9 were filled. We went from 11 to 10 in 2020 down to 9 because Republican registrations were dropping a little bit, but all were filled. But Maricopa County, countywide, Maricopa County, ground zero for election integrity. Only 50% got filled in the July primary election. Why is that? It's because party politics. I don't know. Donald Trump endorsed the precinct committeeman strategy. But unfortunately, he's not. 44% filled. They're called precinct chairs in Texas. Only 44% of the Republican slots got filled. And 40% of the precincts in Texas have 0 precinct committeemen, not even 1. How's that going to help get out the vote? It isn't. We've to do it. So it's probably too late. And I've got Florida. It's about 35% on average in the counties. Pennsylvania, same. South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina. What's that?
2 minutes.
Great, thanks. It's 2 minutes. Okay, so there's another app that's coming out from Votify now. It's called Authenity. When it comes out in about 10 days, I want you to get it. You can read about it at votifynow.org. It's going to allow you, if you take a picture of somebody who's doing something like maybe stuffing a ballot box and they're wearing a mask, they can use artificial intelligence to try to figure out the rest of the face mouth. So check it out at votifynow.org. Votify Now is the only election integrity that is real time and does what it does. You can learn about it at Votify Now. Here at my notes. Let's see. I covered everything I wanted to say. I want to thank you all for what you are doing, but please, 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 whatever hat you wear, election integrity hats for liberty, I want you to also precinct committeeman. Nolan Chang from Hawaii, we've had some successes. He explained it on Bannon's War Room. Look, when we're like this out here, this apparently, he says, look, see how weak our, but when we unite into a fist, Now we really got something. I've got graphics on my site at precinctstrategy.com that explains all this. Please, whoever you are, carve out 3 hours a month. Just try it. Please go to your next monthly Republican Party committee meeting. And if you run into any obstacles, email me, dan@precinctstrategy.com, dan@precinctstrategy.com. Thanks for what everybody
Yeah,
is
good luck.
doing. We've got to win this election. Thanks.
Good looking shirt. Catherine, you're up.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thanks for having me, Steve, and thanks to everybody for joining in. I'll make my comments brief. Just wanted to let everybody know that we are working on a plan for getting surveillance cameras together with manned operators, I guess I should say, that are going to be assisting with the camera in play, and we're going to be covering at minimum Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. The way that this will work is with for about a year cameras and a live stream feed our site, so people around the country will be able to watch what's going on at these drop boxes. And then there's an aspect of AI built into it, so that you, as we are recognizing patterns, will be able to match like patterns, and that helps in any investigation. Truth be told, I'm hopeful to see nothing. I'm hopeful that the public relations side of putting the word out that there will be people monitoring the drop boxes will be sufficient to deter the fraud entirely. But if that doesn't happen, we will certainly be able to say that we have eyes on. So we're excited about that. We are over the coming weeks, but I'll just leave that for another new story, I guess, out of our swim lane, and one that we can all learn something from, is that we were just involved in helping to overturn an election in Georgia. And here's the story. It was a candidate for school board who called me by May and said something was not right about my election. And this is a gentleman who was a Democrat, a nephew of Martin Luther King Jr., and that has no bearing to me. It was just, what happened in your election. And as he began to describe the circumstances where they had people voting who should not have voted, they had people who were being turned away at the polls, all of these things we've kind of heard before, but what was new, and ultimately what the court decided on, and what I want to share with all of you, something that we haven't really focused on. That is, it turned out that his district, they had districted out an entire apartment complex, over 200, and we know at minimum it was this apartment complex. How much deeper the bad mapping went, I don't know, but that piece was able to be isolated and was sufficient for the court to overturn the election. So the message out of this is, as we're thinking about election integrity, if you're working with a candidate or you're just evaluating and just battening down all the hatches, looking at the district lines of whomever you're working with and the perimeters of those, and then matching those to people on the voter rolls, making sure that everything checks out, would be a healthy exercise, and one that we really hadn't considered before. Just, what if the maps are just flat out wrong? But they were in the case, and lesson learned. So add mapping awareness to your precinct, and making sure that the boundaries of your precinct are adequately and appropriately reflected in the mapping, and to expand our efforts in getting drop boxes and support out to election workers broadly. But that's where we are today. So thanks again for letting us share.
Great, and great piece on the War Room. To see it, go to the War Room. You can get a clip on it. She did a great job on it. She'll expand on what you said today. Thank you very much for coming on. I know you're doing a fantastic job.
All right, thanks everybody. Coming to you live out of Ohio today. I was glad to see Tom Renz share a screen with you. We've had some significant developments in Ohio moving in our favor. And it looks like our Secretary of State wants to do business. So with respect to what you might be seeing here, you all looking at my Ohio Protect the Ballot?
Yes.
All right, good. We just run through it. I know we're late into the game here, but this is what's live right now. We had election legislation we put forward to get better enhanced eligibility verification in the summer. The Secretary of State and the Association for the Board of Elections was resistant to that particular legislation, but it's interesting how things go full circle, and I'll cover that for you all here. This is the coalition we went and put an open letter out to our Secretary of State, keeping in mind that the suggestions that were brought up in this meeting about trying to press upon election officials and other state elected officials to work as one. So we have all these advocacy groups that are calling for enhanced verification measures of registrants. And that includes public officials, activists, anybody you can find is in effect that is overseeing tens of thousands of Ohio voters. So this is our coalition, and we're taking more and more names as we speak. And this is the voice that we're now speaking with, not Singleton, when we're speaking to Secretary of State Frank LaRose. Now, a lot of this off, and this is similar to some of the reporting, if Joe Hoft is still on, that he uncovered under Gateway last year, is we have these third-party for-profit registration entities that go out and canvass. Well, last year in Cleveland, they got busted, and a formal complaint was filed for irregularities in terms of registrations. That was also followed this year in July when our, as you can see in the top left there, Ohio Republican chairman in Hamilton County, Cincinnati, board member, identified over 143 bulk fraudulent submissions. And this really opened up the floodgates, because what we had been warning about within the election legislation is that we have a soft underbelly on the front end. We have an honor system that does not validate information. And voter records has been filled in the data form fields, and we have been hawking that as a real issue in Ohio, and now this came to bear on the situation. And of course, our public officials, because for a year this entity, which touts itself as building long-term progressive power, has been able to do this across now at least 2 states. So our Secretary of State referred them for election violations, at least the canvassers, and we're pressing for the Attorney General to take an even deeper look. So this gives us even more impetus, and I'm going to tell you how these events have transpired now, because this is on the board in a positive way. So we countered this incident with mission that I told you, really detailing out the situation with Black Fork and other problems with our election law, deficiencies in administrative issues. What we learned is that the way our Secretary of State's rules are written for the Board of Elections is they treat all status they may be in as eligible for an absentee ballot. We think that became our biggest issue going in, and so we shifted our strategy from looking at this, what kind of election legislation, what the Secretary of State of Ohio can do. So the Secretary of Ohio on the margins is finding non-citizens and did a substantial annual voter list maintenance removal. He has not yet done perhaps significant things that need to be done, which is protecting that portion of the vote of the voter records, that haven't been fully determined eligible. And with this event occurring with Black Fork Strategies, that group I indicated to you, we're looking at potentiality of fraudulent ballots. And that could happen because fraudulent ballot in Ohio, and you produce the same information for your absentee ballot form, you're in, as far as the way that their level of procedural review and standard criteria work. We think that's a big issue, and we put that front and center in Ohio for our Secretary of State to know that going into this election. And in that green box, you'll see these are the 4 things. There'll be another slide, a couple more here, and I'll be done. But this is essentially the demand or the ask within the letter for him to put these particular voter records in provisional ballot status, meaning that if a record hasn't been determined as fully eligible, as has some form of question, they have to go vote in person, produce an ID, and as such are not qualified to obtain an absentee ballot. And that's the state has a right to determine its eligibility. It's within Ohio's constitution and within Ohio's law. So this was the Secretary of State's response. In the same week that we issued and delivered a letter, he sent a letter to the Senate President and Speaker of our House saying he now wants a potential election legislation 30 days out from early voting. He's called on them while they're adjourned to participate in this effort. We are in agreement with what he has asked for. All three of them are very strong. There was a federal case that overturned an issue of our ability to enforce ballot harvesting, and now that has been weakened by the result of that lawsuit. And he's now asking the legislature to consider banning drop boxes. Fortunately, as you can see in the top right, we do have a bill in our Senate they can fall back on. He's also asked, coming off the Arizona Supreme Court ruling on the stay, that our legislature pivot off of that and now adopt proof of citizenship law to register to vote. That's something that I would say at this point, probably Republican Secretary of State should be pressed upon as well, since that is likely going to come to fruition after 15 years of Arizona fighting it. Now, he's waited for that case, but he's always had the ability to make that a requirement. And finally, and maybe perhaps most importantly, on 250 to 350,000 voter records, we're asking him to mark those ineligible records for provisional status. So this is basically our 1-2 step and reason below. We want to identify all non-citizens. He's doing that incrementally. We don't have a number on how many there are. There's not a single database for those. We recognize he has challenges in identifying those this late in the game since he started after May. We also want to identify mismatched or assign mismatched information, about 50,000 of those records to provisional, and 79,000 duplicates that are out-of-state records that would fit that category as voter. And therein, in step 2, we're asking for him to also take any of our voter elector challenges, which we're bringing across 12 counties formally as Iowans. We've got another aspect of our G. We're bringing and challenging voter records. We've challenged up to 1,300. We are finding mass resistance to that right now. And we think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the other side is trying to intimidate the County Board of Elections, not to find this threatening a lawsuit on their own should this occur. We have to just work through lawfare, and our public officials need the encouragement to follow the law. And we certainly will use all of our resources to ensure that no one's constitutional right is denied on the ability to challenge a voter record. And below in green is what you see is what the Secretary of State has. Find in your law what your Secretary of State is able to do, from investigating or marking ballots. I don't know if enough people are trying this method. This is an important to the U.S. Constitution. The qualified electors clause gives our states authority to determine eligibility. That means many of our secretaries of state can flag records that are a problem. We can help them find those records, and we are, but we have to work as in unison in the states where the elected officials want to work. And we already have our lineup for 2025-6. For the next years, these are the areas we want to work on with respect to our legislation. A lot of this comes down to, like I said, the first three, everything has to do with what the Secretary of State now wants to do. We commend him for coming out on this, albeit we would have heard that he recognized that opportunity back in April and June, where 2 of his 3 provisions he would like now were in the legislation, but it's never too late to take leadership and move the right issues forward for the elections. And then there's also some aspects that we want that have been heard in this presentation about independent third-party security assessment reviews. I know Chip Hoff talked about this. That's part of legislation we have to ensure only who are able to assess for certification voting systems. So we have quite a few things in Ohio that would empower the counties to do hand counts across the board if they so choose within a petition ballot. We're also asking to determine our residency requirement based on surrendered driver's license information and not let a record sit there for 4 years. We think that's a litmus test. So that's quite a few things on our list. We worked a lot with Federalist, and this is just some of the things we've been getting out there. We thank any platform that wants to carry the message, because we think this is the use case.
I'm not sure I can make it over there.
Republican case.
What time do you open in the morning?
Someone could check their mic. That's
Okay,
my presentation. I'll be putting.
so if I don't get it this
information on the
afternoon, I
open
will be
letter
there morning.
into the chat. Thanks
Okay,
again.
thank you.
And anyone
Okay.
listening, just know Ohio's moving in the right direction, albeit it's very late. But know that we are organizing very well here as a posse to ensure that elected officials know that we are going to hold them to account to do all of these things. That's all I have.
Thanks very much, Marcel. Raj, you're up.
Great, thank you. And there we go. One of the common denominators in what you've heard today is we have got to get more volume to our voice. We've got to figure out a way to add more pressure to concerns that we have. And so what I'd like to offer for your consideration is there's a large segment of our population that actually favors the values that are represented by the people on this call, and they are actually not voting. The number is pretty significant by conservative numbers. There are probably at least 20 million Americans, at most maybe 40 million Americans. And to the elections have been decided by as little as 40,000 people in key counties. The following perspective. So again, are folks that probably share your values when it comes to pro-life, when it comes to fairness in elections. And so the about to show you was been put together by an organization called My Faith Votes. It's very short and call to action at the end of the video. The first call to action is provided by My Faith Votes. The other call to action is provided by defendourunion.org. Please look at this and please consider exercising this year in your community. And here we go.
There are over 90 million Christians in the United States today. When we unite, turn our faith into action, we have tremendous influence. What would our communities look like if we, as believers, stood for Judeo-Christian values at the ballot box? We aren't doing this alone. We are joined by millions of Christians across the country who are committed to standing for biblical principles. When we think about the faith, biblically line them up against the candidates. Then, but we must show up and take a stand. Our communities need us to be the difference.
I'm going to pause the video there. I want you to please consider taking that action, take a picture. Again, this is provided by myfaithvotes.org. I'm looking at in fact, I'll just put this on the screen. It's sideways, but I'll read it for you. It's likely, this is information courtesy of Seth Keschel. Thank you for that. It's likely that the elections will be decided by the electors in these 30 counties. It's a small target. So the call to action is if you would please consider basically targeting Christians who are not voting in those counties. An easy way to get them engaged is simply sharing this text quote to 50457. In addition to that call to action, you can also contact us at Defend Our Union by text 1776. If you were to do that, a couple of things that you will get in a toolkit that's available to you, just very beautifully put together by myfaithvote.org, is a blueprint for how you can interact with your pastor. So as I mentioned on the last call, the potential advantage with working with this particular strategy is that if you're able to get traction with a pastor, one person, that person can influence the entire congregation. Most Christians believe this. Most Christians believe that they're supposed to do what God wants them to do. And these 40 million Christians are under the impression that they don't have to get involved in the governance or the responsibilities of what's going on in their local communities, from school boards to law enforcement to legislators. And that inaction has created a moral vacuum, which has allowed all of us that we've been talking about on this call to get to significant levels of power, and those people are for us. So if you were to consider taking that, texting that number, you'll get this blueprint here. If you don't get it, you can contact us. We can forward it to you. It's very simple. It's very great. It shows you how to have a conversation with your pastor about what your church can do, can't do. You can't endorse candidates. You can't contribute resources, but you can get people engaged. You can inform them. You can get them to participate in the efforts that are taking place. As many of the people already said on this call, local action is our only pathway forward. You've heard from Dan, you heard from just about every speaker on this call here. There are tips here on how you can talk with your pastor if you've never done that. Again, this is a force multiplier. You talk to one pastor, that pastor, depending on the size of the congregation, is a direct influence over a couple of hundred people. They have sample emails in which that you can work with your pastor in getting people, each and every one of us, yours, I'm asking you, your mission, if you so choose to accept it, is to your share of these 40 million Christians that are being passive and allowing us to go off the rails. There's a social media that you can use by texting that information that you can post to get this idea across the board. So overall, a very well thought out toolkit provided by myfaithvotes.org. So I'm appealing to you, my friends, all of the things that we have to do. One of the things we've got to figure out is how to get more people, add more pressure to the causes we believe, whether it be legal legislation, or the 40 million Christians in this country that are not voting is a worthwhile endeavor to pursue, and it's not a difficult task to undertake, given that we do, but they're under the misconception that their participation is not needed, and that absence is creating massive, massive turmoil in your county, in your state, in our nation, and therefore the world. So please take that on. I'm going to read that text message again. It is going to be text the word vote to 50457. 50457. Steve, thank you. Back to you.
Yep. Okay, so 40 million people to vote. I want to thank a couple more people before we have our next guest. Yournews.com. If you go to www.yournews.com, get his app. He's helping us. We got it. Yep, we got it right. Okay. Sam Anthony, great guy. I work with him. He puts everybody on. You can write articles and get them in. We currently have about 100,000 people watching. I have to get reports of all our podcasters will report back they have live. Cloud Hub has helped us. And we have a lot of podcasts, like I told you, 100 on the next one. So our next guest is Mike Sinkowitz. She's been in my office 3 times. She's been on. We got her on the War Room. She's on every week. There's a week.
Steve, and 3 things that I'm going to quickly talk. One of the things we had discussed on one of the shows I was on was the fact that the Nevada Secretary of the RNC's council's law, and the letter was so important because everybody's been trying to figure out how you can find the illegals. There is a way the Secretary of State's offices can find the illegals. There's a number of different ways through certain government things. The letter that I sent to our Secretary of State. I kind of condensed it down. Is the RNC only use the word non-citizens. I include illegal in mine. Because I just do. I'm not politically correct all the time. So we're asking up there as well, because we want them to know, we know you can find these people that are not supposed to be on the website. Hundreds and hundreds of people already sending us what they've sent. There's a woman in Tennessee that put an army of people that she was going to have just all they were going to be doing. So that's something, if you're at home, you're not sure what you can do, if you're not on phone or whatever, send it, get your friends to send the letter. The next thing is that we had started a few months ago, we'll register double voters. We've come a long way. Now you can actually go to our website, on data request, and fill out the form. And we are giving out more than 500. We're actually giving out counties at a time. And please do that. Our new data has just come in. So we will start sending out probably tomorrow afternoon. Mind you, it takes for us to get all of that together. The final to say that you might want to, what I did here in Connecticut, and I'll tell you, yesterday I certainly not only, so I found out in Connecticut that registrar of voters are not being certified. And in Connecticut, and all laws are different, in Connecticut it says they have to be certified within 2 years and then recertified every year thereafter. Not certified, they cannot run an election. Well, I started this pushback on July 9th. I emailed the Secretary of State in Connecticut, the head of elections. I threw in there the head of the Democrats and the head of the Republicans, and basically asked them for the list of the 338 registrars across the state, both Democrat and Republican, when they were hired, when they were certified, and when they were recertified, and to please send it to me. It took a month before the Secretary of State's office and sending me a list, which was not complete. It was certification, wrong things. And what we figured out was that at least 148 were not certified to run elections in Connecticut. That's huge. So what we did last week was we sent in Friday to the mayor and the legal departments for the 169 towns of their canvassing. And then what we did on 169 mayors, town selectmen, and we have had an incredible response. First thing we found out was the Secretary of State sent a memo to all the registrars in Connecticut telling them not to provide information to fight voter fraud on certification unless it was sent for under the Freedom of Information. Does she think I just fell off the turnip truck? I mean, of course I sent it under the Freedom of Information. So we're having a number of them that are complying. I have had frantic calls from mayors and one who is very concerned on what happens if neither of them or one of them is not certified. And I said, well, then they can't run an election. And he goes, well, what do we do? And I said, well, unless you have a registrar, there is nobody else that could run it. And I said, I don't want to stop elections, but I also want people who are qualified to run the elections. So a scenario is the governor is going to have to proclaim a state of emergency, pull into several legislatures, and give approval for these non-certified registered, doesn't matter, to actually handle the election. So if you're out there and you also, why don't you look up and see your own state, what the qualifications and certifications are of your election officials to see if they are actually certified. This is another way to make sure we have the people in place doing their jobs. Again, the reason why I did that that is I saw so many were not doing their jobs with all the information that we have been getting out there. I certainly stirred that hornet's nest yesterday. But we're getting responses, and we're going to this, and then we're going to deal with whomever collected the money that the state pay or the town paid for them to go through their classes when they didn't go through their classes. So that'll be the next step after all of this. See who actually did things legitimately. That's what we're up to right now. We're just encouraging people check out the letters on our website, fightvoterfraud.org. See if you, and please, if you get a chance, send a copy. Just send it via email, linda@fightvoterfraud.org. And again, the data requests, we have they're constantly pouring in. So I should say it'll take 4 to 5 days for you to actually get them now, because we've done thousands already, and now it's the new batch. So I guess that's about it. Steve, again, for everything to help promote fight voter fraud. I really appreciate it, and Raj, what you're doing with this program as well. So
You got it, Terry Raposa.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. You look good. Let me see that flag shirt. There you go.
Yeah, I bought this a long time ago. It actually cost me more than my first car. Just kidding. They're wonderful shirts. They last forever. I want to touch on something Raj said, and I think that before I get in what I'm going to talk about, which I'll read, but we have to get the Christian vote going, and we've got to get the pastor. I think a lot of pastors run into is with Romans 13. In some pastors' interpretation of that talks about how the people need to submit to the government, but God doesn't ask us governments to make sure that we change that lawless government. And we talking local. Well, Shasta County, we started that with a lot of people that just folks have to get to those people, and how to do that. And that's the question, and that's the solution. The folks that are just out there, like Alyssa McHugh, nobody knows on, Carlos Zapata, Jeremy Edwardson, and all these young people that got up in front of boards of supervisors in northern counties, especially in Shasta County, and said, you know what, we're going to allow you children anymore. We're not going to allow you to do certain things because we understand that we have one of the issues we run into, which we have to change this mindset, is the fact that we have an inverted hierarchy. We talk about constitutional rights. We don't have constitutional rights. We have God-given rights that are protected by the Constitution. Marley Hornick, we were in a conversation, and people were saying, well, hey, we will not, we shall not. But Marley said, isn't the government supposed to submit to us? Aren't we the higher power? And when we look at that, we look at the 10th Amendment, it's spelled out right there. Anything not delegated to the government we created as states is reserved to who? The states or the. Now think about it. How can you delegate something to a lower power? Only a higher delegate to a lower power. Therefore, we have the power, and anything reserved means we have ownership. What delegation means is you own something that's reserved to you and temporary custody over until you decide you want to change it. In the case of the Constitution, it'd be an amendment. One of the things we did that I think a lot of people don't really know about, and that is the doctrine of magistrate. That's key to this whole thing locally. When you stop and think about that, the doctrine of the lesser magistrate was in the Declaration of Independence. Governments are instituted among men deriving just powers from the. But whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. Again, the people are in power. Many people read the 10th Amendment and say, you know, it's the states and the people. No, it's or the people. So let's get back to local and what really happens there. Back in 2020, we actually went inside a Board of Supervisors chambers we weren't allowed to go into. And there was 100 of us. And we went inside there and said, no, we won't comply with it because you are usurping our constitutionally protected rights. Now, I can only talk about the state of California and that has one. Every state has something in our Constitution that they will honor and they will respect and they will follow the Commerce Clause. California, Article 3, Section 1 specifically states that California recognizes the Constitution of the United States of America as the supreme law of the separable part of that, which means anything that's in the state of California, and you will have this in your states too, this will be in somewhere in your state constitution, anything that is not compliant with or adhering to the Constitution of the United States is null and void. It's in every constitution. Yet we're missing this because we're looking at all these other things. Data, who's going to listen to our data? Do we really actually have a government that listens to us in our? We were talking about going to the Secretary of State. Does the Secretary of State in your state, will they pay any attention to you? And in some states, the answer is yes. In the state that I live in, California, the answer is no. So what we have to do is we have to understanding this going to be, let's talk about local a little bit. And it's something everybody needs to look at. I can only kind of highlight it for lack of time here. You're either Board of Commissioners or Board of Supervisors of your county have a lot more than a resolution. And I'm going to suggest this for California, and we are now suggesting this for several counties in California. That is, you put together a resolution. The resolution will say and be signed by the Board of Supervisors saying that any law that's passed by the United States Constitution is therefore null and void and will have no effect on the county that you live in. That's constitutional, not only in the United States Constitution, but the Constitution of your state. And I'm Article 11, the Board of Supervisors can pass an ordinance saying, we want to do this, we have control over it, because in California, like many other states, subsidies, not arms, of the state. Because we believe our voter, we are going to go to handgun. We are going to get rid of excuse us. We ran into AB 969, which is a law trying to say we can't do it, but that's a fight. The other thing you can do is measure in your county. And the measure in your county would basically say anything that is not be allowed or followed in any way, shape, or form in our county. These are three things we can do. Now, something else I want to bring up, and that was writ of mandamus. A writ of mandamus is a tricky thing because I was on a Supreme Court case that we didn't win, but we went after the writ of mandamus. When you do that, there's around 2,000 or 3,000 of those submitted. They're looked at by a law clerk. The law clerk will decide which one of those gets picked. So how do you get to the front of the line? And the way we can get to the front of the line, and the way that we can get to the front of the line in a big way, the United Sovereign American Group, is we can move to the front of the line by saying this is a case that is dilution of vote. This is a case that is usurping the vote. Therefore, we now have, but a writ of mandamus is very tricky because they pick, you have about 2,000 or 3,000, but you have to get. So I think one of the things we really have to start going to happen, as Dan said, is make it happen. It's got to be the people to make it. After the people to make it, the people in your neighborhood. It's got to be your county. And I know that local. Well, you know, that's great. And he's right about that. You know what? There's been a lot of people like Dan who's been doing local for a long time. And as we do those kinds of things, we have to regular people give them the understanding of who they are in this country. And taking back the churches. Remember, Romans 13 does not tell us to be with this. Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego told Nezer to go pound sand because they were an idol. They weren't going to worship any kind of golden idol. They told him to pound sand. Usurping? Romans 13? No. They were following God's law. What about Paul? Saying, wait a second, you can't do this to me. I'm a Roman citizen. What about Joseph? What about Daniel? What about, the point is, what about Jesus in the temple? And we can't be looking at Jesus, some sort of gee whiz, just this weak little guy. No, he's the Lion of Judah. And we have to follow these things and understand who we are. Everybody's heard Chronicles 2. Everybody's heard 7:14. We may not all come back and retain. The leadership needs to. That's why we need to take back our government, and we need to do it locally. Locally is with the Board of Supervisors, number 1. Number 2, the school board. And I would love to have a chance about the laws in California, not the mandates they're putting forth. Everybody to look up HR 15, which is a House of Representatives bill, which the United States government was going to try to stop the secrecy policy. And you can't have a referendum of a state law if you're with the federal government. So I'll leave it with that. God bless you, Steve, for everything that you do. It's been amazing. And Raj, I'd love to talk to you more about Romans 13 and some other things. But you guys are amazing on this call. All of you, God bless you. And let's get this done.
Thank you very much. Ed Solomon's next. Ed, got 10 minutes and then we're through.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here to talk about algorithmic election fraud. Okay. The enemy here seeks to subjugate us and destroy us. So what we do and what we do after this election affect future generations for a very long time. Okay, technology is evolving very quickly, and humans, for the most part, are not. Okay? Not to certify the 2024 primaries. Okay? Now, when the Secretary of State, Attorney General of Nevada, for them to reconvene, their own words, in the face of felony imprisonment and impeachment and removal from office, and then they were forced to certify, again in their own words, under extreme duress. The enemy is on the move, okay? Then we just heard the Michigan Secretary of State say something about a week ago. She says any county committee or county officials that don't certify the election, again, she says in her own, we will come for you. They are now publicly threatening, coercing local and county officials buying elections that they know. 10 minutes, what do I say? Okay, the first thing I'm going to show you is, I call this the victory slide. I'm going to share my screen. And this concerns Colorado, okay? And I show the slide to people who are on our side, but don't think the machines or algorithms have very much to do with the manipulation of the votes. So what you're seeing here in this slide, if I zoom in, it's El Paso County in 2020 in Colorado. The red line shows you what percentage of Republicans voted no on Proposition B. That goes from 65 to about 55% over the course of the election. Proposition B was about raising taxes. The blue line, what percentage of the B? It was about 33% of Democrats voted no. Regardless of which county you go to in Colorado, there's about a 20 to 30% difference between how Republicans and Democrats felt on Proposition B, which makes sense, raising taxes. Let's go over to Arapahoe County in Colorado. Very different. What you see here over time, as the ballots are being counted according to cast vote record, that there is no difference in how Democrats and blue and Republicans and red voted Proposition B over the entire course of the election, with hundreds of thousands of ballots counted, just like in El Paso County. Not only is there no difference between how they voted over time, but however they change in their mood, they change in perfect parallel over time. So there was a bipartisan consensus in Arapahoe County on raising taxes, and it was bipartisan in time. They move in perfect parallel. If that's not an algorithm, I don't know what would prove to you that there's an algorithm in our elections that are manipulating vote totals. Now let's go to Nevada. What's wrong with Nevada? There's a lot of things wrong with Nevada. County commissioners received this document. In total, I have about 34,000 pages of documentation on election fraud. Right now, I'm writing an entire textbook on detecting and litigating algorithmic election. Day. Like, I don't have time to. That's an issue about that right now, unfortunately. It's not too different from what happened in 2020 over in Nevada. Okay? If I gave you 4 vote totals, A, D,
thank you. We'll see you on the next call. Please look for an email from us in a few weeks. Good night for now. Bye-bye.
Okay, there you go. That has been happening live. I wanted to bring it to you. I'm sorry for all the sound problems in the very beginning. I'll get it cleaned up some and post it on the Rumble page. Rumble.com/do not talk. And Steve Stern has just been fantastic with that kind of stuff right there. My biggest frustration with my own fellow Republicans is their lack of talking about election integrity. And like Raj said right at the very end, don't be just hearers, don't just be talking, but actually do something. Do something. And that's what Steve Stern has been doing. And he's been showing us how to do it and where to go and what's been going on and how blatant it is and how to have an answer when somebody like Tom McClintock, our congressman in Northern California and where I am, when I brought up election fraud and election integrity and cheating, he said, well, there's not enough of it to prove that it would have swayed the election. So how much is enough? How much is enough? And I fully disagree with that. I think that's an absolute lie and a complete cop-out. And I'm sick of it. I'm done with my own fellow Republicans because nothing's going to change. Do you understand that? And I am convinced that this California Republican Party is perfectly happy with being in second place because it's easier to fundraise, isn't it? And you got a few people there at the top who are doing quite well, including the chair, who should have never been reelected. And she makes some pathetically large amount of money. It's like $250,000 per year to chair the California GOP. By the way, it used to be volunteer. It wasn't until she got in that they bumped this price up for her money to run the party into oblivion. They're trying to take out of the party platform that, yeah, we're not pro-life. Yeah, we're not pro-marriage. Trying to take that out of charter. That's what your chair, $250,000 per year. They love being in second place. It's easy, isn't it? It's easy. Oh, we're going to fight against Nancy Pelosi. We're going to fight against Gavin Newsom. Send us more money, and we'll take on the wiener. Out of San Francisco, if you don't know. One of the worst ever to hold public office in the state of California. Just a demonic man. So there you go. Do what you want with that. If you don't want to share it because you're afraid you'll be deleted or you're afraid you'll be, have it pulled down, you're afraid somebody will say something bad about you because you're an election denier. No, we don't deny there was an election. We just deny that it was an honest one. Don't let them control you with their name calling. Please don't. We're done with that. We've got a country to save. We've got a state to save. This is the most important election of our lifetime right now. I hear everyone say that every election season, but this is absolutely true. Me say that. Until now. The most important election of our lifetime. And you're not even registered to vote? You need to fix that right now because we need every person in the game. In California, it's registertovote.ca.gov. I don't know about your state. Look it up. registertovote.ca.gov. And if you're in California like I am, don't give a dime to the California Republican Party until they get their act straight. I'm working with a whole bunch of different groups, and we're trying to get out those stinking rhinos and those Democrats that have infiltrated in, calling themselves Republicans, calling themselves they're liars. The truth is not in them. We got to do something. I'm telling you what, if we don't win in big ways this coming November, we're done. It's the truth. Registertovote.ca.gov. Start there. Actually get registered. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America, but most importantly, America bless God.